Hey there, I'm Kate and this is Monocat, and today I'm going to talk about the InMotion V12. So, let's get this started. First, I'm going to talk briefly about the specs and performance of the V12, then all of its features, and as a last part about the ride feeling of the wheel, and who it is good for. The V12 gets usually sold new for around €2,100 and comes with a 1750 Wh battery and has a 16 by 3 inch tire. The range is around 70 to 100 kilometers depending on your weight and riding style. With my 60 kilograms, I would get around 90 kilometers on a full charge. The great thing is, if you want to ride more than that, the V12 can handle up to a 10 amp charger, which would charge the wheel up in under 2 hours. The stock charger has only 2.5 amps and takes around 7 hours to charge, but therefore it has no fan, which is great if you want to charge it overnight. When it comes to the performance, the V12 can go up to around 70 km an hour, since it has a high-speed motor. But because of that, there is not that much torque. It can handle a 35-degree incline, but when Adam tried to tackle a 40-degree incline, it fainted at the top. Another great thing to notice is the durability and build quality, which makes it very water resistant, and if you have water damage, it is covered by warranty. But if you want to open up the wheel and fix it, it makes it a bit more difficult to reach the right places. If you want to know more about the build quality, Wrongway made a 1-hour in-depth video about the V12 where he goes into all the small details. So if you're interested in that, you should definitely check it out. The V12 is packed full of features and is probably the most customizable wheel I've seen so far. Through the screen mounted on the V12, it shows the most important features you would need on the go. The screen is pretty bright and because of that good visible in daylight. Next to showing you the speed, you can also check different data like mileage, battery percentage, temperature of different components, and also change the modes you are riding in. But except the speed, the other data is rather small on the display, so during riding it's hard to see them. And because the different modes change a lot about the ride feeling, I will talk later in the other category more about it. All those things you can access in the InMotion app, which I prefer doing, since the screen on the V12 is rather small and becomes difficult to use if you wear gloves or you try to use it in rain. Through the app you can also set up a password so that the wheel only becomes rideable after putting in the code on the screen on the V12. And another great thing is that you can also check your battery percentage during charging, which is a neat feature. And if you want to use darkness mode with the V12, this is also now possible since the app just got updated a couple of days ago and is now also compatible with the V12. The lights have a pretty great setup in my opinion, with the upper beam shining towards the floor and the lower beam shining a bit more upwards. I was usually just riding around with the upper beam on, since it doesn't blind people and makes you more visible. For the night, I would turn on both beams at once and that was usually enough to see. As long as you're in an area with streetlights, you probably don't need any additional lighting to see, since the fully turned on light provides enough. On the literally and figuratively other side is the backlight. It is made out of 2 red LED stripes on the back and is barely visible, even in the night. This is because the backlight, as well as the LED rings on the side, are behind the plastic shell, which has a dark tint and therefore reduces the brightness by a lot. But hey, at least the LED rings on the side are customizable as well. So for the V12 you should definitely buy an additional backlight to install on your wheel. The speakers are on this wheel in the front and back, which I think is one of the best solutions for speaker placement. Since there is a speaker in front of you, it is easy to listen to the music not only by yourself, but for other riders as well if they want to join you. Since they will be more likely to ride in front or back of you and not on your sides. The audio quality is also quite decent, nothing special or fancy, but for a EUC definitely enough. The V12 is also the first EUC with kickstand that I tried. And because it's such a simple and basic feature, I'm surprised that not more EUCs have it. It was never in the way of riding and seemed always very convenient if you want to make a stop and there is no wall or bench to lean your EUC against. And this kickstand is also very sturdy, so I'd never have to fear that it would get knocked over. To use it, you don't have to turn off the V12, but just simply press the lift switch and then place it backwards onto the kickstand. So I would definitely like to see more future EUC with a kickstand. The mudguard on the back comes already pre-installed, and even though it is rather small, it is quite effective. I never had any troubles, and since it's pre-installed, it's pretty convenient. On the back above the mudguard is under the flap the charge ports, where you find the charge port for the EUC, a USB-A and USB-C charge port, in case you need to charge your phone on the way. And because those are installed vertically, you don't have to worry that much about water getting into the wheel, even if you forgot to close the flap on top. Also, the buttons are pretty simple. There is the power button on the left front side to turn the wheel on and off, and you can also toggle the light on and off with it. And then there's also the lift switch under the handle. This one is easy to reach and to use due to its size and placement. But because the V12 weighs 30 kilograms, I don't plan to lift it often anyways. The trolley handle of the V12 is not a bad one, since it locks in place and is pretty sturdy, but it's a bit inconvenient to use. If you want to open it up, you first need to press a button in the front in order to unlock it, and then the trolley handle is also rather short. As long as you have it next to your side, it is okay, but if you want to turn the EUC or have it in front of you during walking, it is just too short and makes it a bit awkward. And now let's talk about ride feeling. In general, I like 16-inch wheels for the ride feeling, since they are small and nimble, but also are big enough to be more stable during higher speeds. And since you probably have your own preferences, let me know in the comments what is your favorite wheel size and why. And again, the V12 is still very customizable, even when it comes to the ride feeling. But let's talk about the standard setup first. It has quite good acceleration, but the braking felt very sluggish to me. And especially when you brake from a higher speed, the wheel starts to have wobbles. So I was always making sure that I had enough braking distance to other road or path users in front of me. For turning, it was noticeable for me that the wheel is definitely heavier than other 16-inch wheels, and I had to use more of my body weight to take turns and also for carving. But because of the high foot plates, you have at least never to worry about scraping the floor, and you can take quite sharp turns. But because the wheel is so incredibly customizable, you can also change the pedal height. This takes just about 10 to 15 minutes. The highest of the three options definitely feels the most balanced and like it was made for the wheel. On the lowest setting, the wheel starts to feel a bit unbalanced and is more prone to wobbles, especially on higher speeds. Also, the feeling of the turning changes a bit, so that you really have to lean a lot and sharp turns are not that easy to perform anymore. But for beginners this might be a cool option, since it can be a bit intimidating to be high up on a wheel if you try to learn how to ride it. And even though it's a 16-inch wheel, it is surprisingly nice to go for a bit of off-roading on it. As long as it's mild to medium off-roading, the wheel feels balanced and accurate, and also bumps were not that strongly noticeable, which made it feel very effortless to ride. And this effortless ride feeling also connects to how I perceived speed on the V12. First of all, it is very easy to go slow speeds on the wheel, which is great if you're in a more dense area, but also if you have more space and go a bit faster, I usually underestimated the speed. So when I thought I would go 25 km an hour, I actually went 35. But this effortless riding feeling only goes up to about 50 km an hour, because after that you can start noticing the speed wobbles, which are typical for a smaller tire diameter. I would usually not go faster than 40 km an hour and enjoy cruising around 30 km an hour the most. And like all wheels, the V12 has also different ride modes to customize the ride feeling. But instead of soft, medium and hard mode, the V12 has off-roading, which is a bit stiffer and reacts quicker, and commuting, which is smoother with more stability. I was usually riding in a commuting mode, but there was also not a big difference between the two modes. Something that does change the ride feeling is the pedal sensitivity, which represent more the soft, medium and hard mode as we know them. You can adjust those on a scale from 0 to 100, with 0 being the closest to a soft mode, where the pedals will float a bit more around and tilt with you. 50 feels like a medium, and on 100 the pedals are the stiffest and stay in place. I wasn't so fond of the V12 in the beginning in its standard setting, due to its turning and slow braking, but this was until I discovered the split ride mode. Here you can adjust two sliders similar to the pedal sensitivity. One is called speeding, which refers to acceleration, and the second one is braking. They go from 0 to 100 again, with 0 having the slowest acceleration and braking, and with 100 you get the most direct and fastest acceleration and braking. And you have it set up to 100 for acceleration. The pedals will also go slightly up during the acceleration, which makes it feel easier to push for more speed. If you have both sliders up on 100, it will make the wheel feel like you ride a Godway wheel, but without the pedal dipping in turns. And once I had it set up on 100 for both, I started to enjoy riding this wheel a lot more. Especially since I didn't need to worry so much about the braking distance anymore, and it made the ride feeling more fluent and fun for me. I would say this wheel is a great commuter with all of its practical features, water resistance and ability to make tight turns and being stable on slow speeds. And in addition to that, it has enough performance that you can easily join on a group ride or ride around for fun. And no matter if you're a beginner or advanced rider, I think this wheel is great for both. A beginner can learn on the lower footplate setting and doesn't need to buy a new wheel when they become more experienced and might want a higher footplates or performance, since it is already available. And for an advanced rider, it is also great if you want to have a fun, customizable and reliable wheel as your everyday ride. With that being said, I hope you could get a better understanding about the V12, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, and if you feel really fancy, you might subscribe. See you next time.
Gone. Or she's not gone. She gone. No. Guess I'll stay here and